Over to you.
I had the screen. I used to have a screen behind me. I've now taken it away to open up, and yeah, it's a lot of. It's part of a lot of changes we've made in the house and the home. It's just, when we had people in the house permanently, the doors were closed and everything was sort of boxed in. And now things have opened up. We've got 2 rooms back, and I also decided to take away the screen because for my classes, I have a virtual background.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's a virtual background for Skype, but I'm not particularly bothered if there is or isn't. You can look at my kitchen behind me, dining room table and fridge and whatever. It's fine. And yeah, we just had yesterday our 5th wedding anniversary.
Oh, lovely! Congratulations.
Thanks. We went. One of my daughters gave us a voucher to go to Crown Plaza, and we went had a meal at the Chinese restaurant there.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, very nice. We haven't been to a Chinese restaurant in Australia. It's the first time, and yeah, we really enjoyed it.
Very good. Is that the casino?
Yeah, just literally around the corner from, or through the door from the casino. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Nice.
Yeah. It was good. So, what have you been up to?
Not much, really. Been a very quiet, same old sort of life.
Okay.
Just dealing with angry people mainly. So.
Oh, is that so?
A lot of angry people out there at the moment. So.
Yeah, people have very harsh opinions as well.
Don't they ever?
Yeah.
Yeah, I had this guy on Friday, it was. I was trying to help him on the telephone, and just out of the blue, he says, "No, you're a dickhead. I don't want to talk to you anymore." I said, "Okay."
Goodness me.
That's fine. And then he rang back about 20 minutes later.
Yeah.
And admitted to me that what I was telling him was actually right. But I was still a dickhead anyway.
Oh, goodness me. Yeah. I sent my brother a video that somebody had sent me all about this particular specialist on the jabs, the vaccines and things. And I just sent it on to him because I found it interesting. And so, oh, but my God, did he lose his temper when he replied to me about absolute junk and how can I think like this? And, whoops, step back. And he didn't hold back on his...
Really?
Yeah. And,
I see they're blaming South Africa now for the latest.
Yes, I see
version.
that too. Yeah. And I've seen some angry people respond to that accusation in the South African media.
Oh, well, at least they can't send you back there now.
Never say can't.
No, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, this government isn't known for its compassion, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. I've just been in the last half an hour. I've got a class tomorrow. My spirituality class in November it was once a week. I'm doing 2 different classes in December, which will be twice a week. And I started writing something.
Yep.
And I haven't got. I've only like 1 page so far. I thought maybe I'd read it to you, and we can pick up on where I am. I sort of wrote it because let me just tell you why. Because I had that. I've been doing the spiritual classes, and for the first month or the last period of time, it's basically been the same class. Okay, I've I sort of approached it in a question and tried to get interaction, and I would get interaction. It was fine. The numbers varied immensely, and so I've also taken an attitude now with all my classes. It's got nothing to do with numbers for me. Okay.
No.
I'm going to research. I'm going to present to the best of my ability, and if nobody is listening, then that's fine. I'm still going to put it out there. Okay.
Well, the other issue there, of course, is you don't know how many people's in that lounge just watching anyway, do you?
No, you don't. But there is a number. You can ask for the number. Okay.
Yeah.
And then your technical assistant can give you that number, and anybody in the lounge can see. So you can get that number and even the names. But yeah.
I guess my point is though is that the numbers are more than just who's actually participating.
Yeah, for me, yes. Okay, and if Get Set Up have a different opinion, that's fine too. Then they must restrict me, punish me, drop classes, whatever they must do. They must do. I used to get quite paranoid about it, and so did Sue. But now we're much easier on it now. So anyway, so I've decided that I'm going to look at a new approach to spirituality where I have more to say now, because what happened before is it was always a question, and then if people didn't have anything to say, then the question fell flat. Okay. And I thought, well, what I need to do now, I need to find something that resonates with me. Whereas I was trying to get to a different level where I thought everybody else was at. Okay. And so anyway, let me read you this. This is just the introduction and maybe the first slide. I haven't cut it up yet. Okay. But it's telling me what I'm thinking now. Okay. And how I want to take it forward. So, all right, let's start off. I'll just read it. So it'll take us a minute or two. Okay. The mystery of spiritual consciousness can never be solved. Yet in ancient India, something extremely important was said about it. Quote, consciousness is the inconceivable source of everything conceivable. Unquote. The word source has enormous power. Okay? You and I cannot tell anyone about the source of everything that makes life rich, like love, compassion, charity, empathy, creativity, truth, beauty, insight, intuition, even personal evolution. They flow from the source of our humanity, and it is a creation of spiritual consciousness. God functions like the ultimate benefactor if you are religious. And in most religion, God asks for obedience, reverence, and worship. Spiritual consciousness asks for nothing. How could it? There is no worshipper separate from the source, because everything comes from source. So what and where is source? We are cosmic consciousness working in and around and through us. A quark, a bacteria, or a buzzing mosquito are different avenues for consciousness, but they are cosmic consciousness also. When everything has the same source, the playing field is leveled. But the value for the human condition is that we can say with total certainty that our highest values are innate, inborn, inherent, intuitive. Our consciousness is packaged with them because our consciousness is duplicated myself there. Okay. Therefore, we can wander into wrongdoing. We've made a mistake. Evil and good aren't equals or the product of genes or archetypes. Nothing conceivable by the mind can explain the source of love, compassion, creativity, and all the rest. But where these values are absent, distorted, or betrayed, it is important to realize that the negative side isn't innate or inborn. I realize there is much room for heated debate about the human nature, pain and suffering, and all manner of violence. Okay, solutions to these things must be found in the outside world, to be sure. But the entire spiritual basis of humankind is the knowledge that each of us can return to our source, no matter how much we've strayed from it. Spiritual awakening is called a realization, because you realize who you really are and where you came from. You came from the absolute mystery of consciousness, the source that made all life possible in the first place. That's where I've got to.
So how do you see the class proceeding? Is that like an opening statement, or
I've got to still think that through, but as I was writing, I put a first slide. The opening statement was half of it, and the other half was, what is source, where is source? That's the question on the slide. Okay, then possibly I would come up with this, and if there's no response, then I would move on and maybe talk about what, I want to keep the theme about as the source and consciousness, okay? Because I've mentioned religion and what religion demands, I'll perhaps talk about the difference between religion and spiritual consciousness, okay? Again, ask a question there and just see who's in the class that will pick it up. But I don't know, assume you're in the class, what is consciousness and what is source?
And is it important?
Yeah, and is it important? Yeah.
Because that's a sort of a fairly fundamental question, because as we know, well, as we know, many don't think about these things, and perhaps the reason they don't think about them is they have other priorities or think other things are important.
Right. I'm just putting in there. So
like money or relationships or jobs and I think that is important, because I was reading somewhere, I think it might have been last night or the night before, and like there was a sweeping generalization, but maybe there was some truth in it at one level. It was basically, that women are attracted to men who are confident, successful, perhaps wealthy, or those sorts of things. And that's a very broad, sweeping statement. So where does that leave those that aren't?
Yeah.
And if that is true at some level, then why are those things important over other things? That there really can't be an argument around, that if you accumulate, wealth or relationships or success, however you want to define that. I mean, I suppose traditionally, in a consumeristic society, success is determined by the amount of stuff that you collect. You know, so why is that important? Well, we know from a consumeristic perspective why it's important, because it's got to feed the machine. But from a personal perspective, you know, it seems to me to be a very hollow thing. So, and then it also begs the question, then, is that if someone is very spiritual, why would that not be attractive?
Yeah. Hear you.
Or is it unattractive even? You know? Because is it the antithesis of, you know, that generalized statement about, you know, confidence and how do you define confidence in that context? Is it arrogance? I mean, I don't know. Maybe at some level it is. Because I know a few spiritual people who are extremely confident, but they're not stupid. So it's an interesting question, and it is going to depend a little bit on how people want to respond to it. I mean, for me, and I have a lot of trouble gauging how others think on these things, because I've thought about them so deeply and practice things so devoutly that it's hard for me to see a limited view of some of these things.
Yeah, you see, the people have responded to a class that the first word is spirituality. Okay, and they're coming in. Now, I've tried at the beginning of some of the classes to say, you know, what attracted you here? Okay, and you eventually you get a sort of a glib type of answer. I just wanted to see what you were doing, you know, in the class, or, you know, and sometimes they say, well, there was nothing else that I could go into, and you know, so you get these sort of answers from people who don't help you with their answers. Okay, so I've stopped asking that now. Okay, because it really hasn't brought any value to the class. And because, you know, I can be spontaneous and I can change everything just at a, you know, to fit in with whatever people are, the direction that they are heading in, and what they even find talking to each other, which they are welcome to do, and they do sometimes in classes, actually respond to each other. Then things are going well when they do that, in actual fact. But often there's very little, and so inevitably you get back to they've been attracted to the class, they've been drawn to the class. Okay, God has drawn them into the class, and there's something that is going to be of benefit to them. Okay. And,
well, I think there's a curiosity, isn't there? And there's a curiosity because there's an unanswered question. And you know, with part of, you know, the need to be, you know, incredibly honest with ourselves around these issues, and all issues for that matter, but particularly around these issues, you know, it takes people into some slippery territory, because, you know, some of them have grown up with a religion or a belief which all of a sudden might look as if it's got clay feet.
And they often say that. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And some of them are still deeply entrenched in religion, never thought otherwise. Okay. But why come to a spirituality class is the question they ask. Okay. So and then I don't allow them to start preaching, which they sometimes do, about their religion, especially when it comes to like some really orthodox Christian belief systems, and others for that matter. But the worst, if there were the worst, okay, would be the Christian Orthodox, okay, so they. But I have a rule in the class that they're not allowed to preach their religion. It's a personal thing. They've got to talk about their feelings and how their religion benefits them. So,
and it's also not about, you know, attacking or demolishing or anything like that. Where they're coming from, it's just an open discussion around sharing points of view, isn't it?
Yeah, it is about that. But interestingly enough, this week, earlier this week, last week, sorry, the middle of last week, there was a class given by, it came from the east coast of Australia. Stacey, who sort of has been around for a long time, but she doesn't do classes. She just looks for people to invited guests, okay? And so there was this one woman that was invited, and her name was, I'm just going to look, I wrote it down here somewhere, Issa Hampton, Hampton, Hampton. And her function is, and she's qualified in psychology and other things, and written books and so on, but works for an institution in Australia for the aged, and she spoke about spirituality in aging. Okay. Now, there was very little discussion, because she was talking about how seniors handle spirituality, okay, and what they should be doing. And so, you know, she would say they draw a circle on a piece of paper and put the word self in there, and then another circle above it, also with self. Now, what's the self relationship? What's your relationship with yourself? Okay, and then another circle underneath. What's your relationship, you know, with your friends? Okay, and so on. So there were, I think, 6 or 7 circles that went around. Yeah, I keep jotted them down in my diary. Yeah, self and creativity, and self and nature, and so forth. Okay, and then that was like, she's telling people, now you must do this, you know, to find yourself, I guess, and find your relationship to these different circles, which are different aspects of you and people that you have relationships with, and including nature was one of them. So that was like her spiritual class, you know, and then she gave books to read that people should read about, you know, benefiting from spirituality in aging. So yeah, it was another approach, and I sort of pondered it for a day or two, you know, thinking, should I change that to her sort of approach of actually telling people about how to go about finding a link to your spirituality. But somehow it just didn't resonate with me. So I wasted too much time thinking about it, I think. So I dropped it. And this afternoon, an hour ago, I thought, do I pick it up again? And I said, no, let's just start from scratch. You know, let's just see what comes. And so that's what I'm doing now. Yeah. We have a bit of cold coffee.
It's a very good question. It's a very good question.
Now, in December, the title of my class is Spirituality in relation to Christmas. Okay, that was one of Get Set Up's titles. Okay. So, well, I've still got to think. It's more than a week away, so I don't have to think about it now.
So can I just take you back, sort of back a little bit then? So in terms of the class itself, like what's your goal for that class? Like what do you want to do? Like what would you like to see the outcome of that class be?
Just the Christian one, the Christmas one, or just the spirituality one?
Oh well, it
Right.
doesn't matter. It doesn't matter really.
Okay. Yeah. It's to make people just aware of who they are. Okay. They almost to have a conversation like you and I have, but at a more superficial level, and so that people can go away to have something to think about that is part of, the soul side of their life. Yeah. So originally, all the questions, well, all the classes up to date have all been, very much that way inclined. Okay. So.
Because I'm sort of wondering whether, the context that you paint at the start might be just a little bit more about you, about your journey.
It is. Oh, without a doubt, it is.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think, like as you say, the fundamental question is well, who am I really? Because as a young man, it was about, young family, and it was about success in work, and it was about,
Right.
buying a house or whatever, having a car or whatever, all of those things. But, so is that who I am?
Yeah.
And I think it's posing that question through your opening introduction, however you want to frame that. So when I got my first CEO job, so was that me complete? Well, no.
Yeah.
Turned out to be a very hollow, bitter disappointment. After all those years of striving, So,
Yeah.
And so then it was like, well, what is it? And up to, and you can sort of make that as long or short as you want to, I suppose. But then, where I am today, this is what I do think is who I am. And that description that you just had there with your one page, which I think is incredibly powerful, maybe that puts it into a little more context, because, well, we certainly know in a Western society that, it has been all of those things, like, the grand plan for your life will be is you'll be born, and then you'll go through school, and you'll get good results, and you'll graduate, and then you'll go to college, and then you'll get another qualification, and then you'll get a job, and then you'll get promoted, and you'll get married, and you'll have children, and you'll buy a house, and you'll have a nice car, and you'll take your family on holidays, and blah, 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 blah. And then does that make me who I am? No.
Yeah. Very good point. It's a very good approach. I like that. Yeah. Yeah.
Because everyone's lived their life,
Yes, they will have.
Yeah, and the only thing is I'm not sure about is some of the cultural differences. Like if you've got, some from an Indian culture, for example, that some of the cultural aspects in some parts of India, you know, they talk about, you know, I think the term is mukti, M-U-K-T-I, mukti, I think it is, which is basically liberation. Because in some of, you know, those parts of the world, it's more about survival, you know, and hence arranged marriages and, you know, some things like that. You know, it's the English and the Western systems, you know, which put us through the sausage machine, you know, to say education, so you can get a job, so you can work in these enterprises and generate profits.
Yeah.
And, you know, retire and take your superannuation and then die.
It's why I moved the time back to quite early in my morning, because I needed to get the Americans in class. Okay. So having a class at 8 or 9 o'clock my time is, you know, even earlier in the evening their time.
Yeah.
In America. So and it's worked. Last week I still get a few Indians that wake up very early. Okay, they've got 2.5 hour difference to us.
But I think those questions are probably still relevant to them. The fact that they're participating through Gets It Up, because, you know, they've obviously been touched by, you know, Western cultures and stuff like that anyway. So, you know, that'll be their, you know, I'm cool if I wear denim jeans and drink Coca-Cola, you know.
Yes. Well, thanks for that input.
It's a tricky question, because it's a question, I suppose, in one sense, well, maybe some people don't ask it, but it's a question that maybe, you know, and the response to the question is going to be different from different people, you know. There's, you know, like the response from you and I is, well, I don't know, but I sure as hell aren't going to try and not die wondering, you know. I'm going to search every possibility around that to try and, you know, explore that further.
Yeah.
Where for some other people it's like, oh yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
And that's okay too. That's okay too, you know. Like, yeah.
It is, because, you know, I take the approach that hopefully the fact that they come into a class, a seed has been planted. Okay. And you know, hopefully it's a positive.
I think so too, because and I think if you do make it personal, you know, because you have a very compelling style, but if you make it personal and posing these questions to yourself, you know, it's hard as someone who's observing it not to automatically pose the question to your own circumstances, you know. So.
Yeah. I do make it that I emphasize in these classes. Okay, I only want to hear. I've told you this before. Yeah, I only want to hear the word I. Okay, I don't want to hear us or, you know, ours or something like that. I want to hear I. You know, or my. You know, my opinion, or I feel this way, or you know, I gain this benefit. You know, whatever. And it's so difficult, and we make a joke of it, you know. I say, where's the I? Sorry, Michael. Okay.
Well, that's right, you know. But I think that part of that honesty to self, you know, on this topic in particular, you know,
it's important.
Well, there is really no room to sort of fudge it, you know, like, or any topic for that matter. I mean,
no, this one particularly. I mean, it's because because, you know, otherwise they use phrases like, you know, people say, or I have read, or my religion says. You know, that doesn't help anybody. Okay, so, you know, when you're talking about your or link into your personal spirituality, it can only be personal. Okay. But if they want to preach, then they must find a religion to preach in. Yeah.
And the other thing about preaching, it's one thing to preach, but then you also need to say, well, do I actually do this?
Yeah.
You know, I saw a little cartoon earlier today where it had this like traditional sort of American family, you know, with dad sitting on the lounge chair with the Bible on his lap, and his wife and daughter sitting on another chair adjacent to him, and his son sort of kneeling down at his feet. And it says, you know, in fact, I should read it for accuracy purposes because it's so, in one sense, powerfully true. Let's have a look here. So it says, so the son says to the father, so if the Bible says we should help the poor, welcome the foreigner, heal the sick, respect others, not lie, not commit adultery, not steal, then why do we support Scott Morrison? And the father says, oh, Billy, we don't actually practice these things, we only preach them.
Oh, that's very good. Yeah.
And how many religions are like that?
Makes me think of something. I think it was my brother today sent me a little. I had to sit and listen to this. I knew it was going to be some sort of. Anyway, it was about this guy driving in the motor car, and he saw a big sign up and said 10 kilometers ahead, Three Sisters Convent, sex. So he drove on, and it was 5 kilometers, Sisters Convent, sex. 1 kilometer, Sisters Convent, sex. Turn left here, and he turned left, and he landed up at the Three Sisters Convent, beautiful big building. Knocked on the door, and the beautiful young sister came and opened the door and said, I know why you're here, come on in. Okay, went in and stood outside another door and said, right, put $100 in here. Okay, put $100 in the thing, and they opened the door. And he said, now walk through the door. They opened the door, and he walked through the door and said, you've been screwed by the Sisters of the Free Convent.
Exactly.
Yeah. I enjoyed that. Anyway, we've gone off the subject. Maybe we should stop before it gets worse.
It is such an important subject, though, isn't it? It really is. And
yeah.
And in some ways, that's why I never cease to be amazed as to how little airtime it actually gets. You know. So.
Yeah.
And when there is airtime devoted to it, you know, it's hijacked by some religions, and it's hijacked by extremist views or self-serving views, or you think, wow, it's incredible.
Yeah, I guess it doesn't generate revenue, you know, with the number of people who are going to watch the adverts that go with it.
Well, I think you know, too, it does come back to this issue about honesty, you know, like that brutal honesty with yourself, you know, like, you know, even just the denial as observed through their actions of some people's, you know, view about their own mortality. You know, you look at some of these billionaires, you know, they've collected masses of amounts of of money or resources or whatever you want to say, way beyond their own needs. So, for what purpose? And yeah, just sort of.
But what about, you use the word mortality. Now that comes up often in these classes. I bring it up, okay?
Yeah.
I want to see, okay? And I get quite emphatic statements, okay? Differing statements, but one would be nobody knows what happens after death, okay? Absolutely nobody knows. So
Well, the dead people do.
Say again?
The dead people do.
Dead people do. And I'd say things like, just to sort of edge them on. And what about people who've had near-death experiences and they've had 5 minutes somewhere else and they describe it? Okay. And what about people that actually do through meditation, like people who meditate in caves and they have spiritual journeys that they go to and places they go to, no, that's all nonsense. It's all nonsense, they would tell me.
Well, it also poses the question, though, is, well, what's your definition of death? Because, okay, so you stop breathing, but your hair's still growing and your fingernails are still growing, and there's all of that sort of stuff going on for days. I think up to a couple of weeks, isn't it? So
I don't know. Yeah.
So what's death? What
Yeah, we asked that question too. Yeah. Does your personality, does your character continue with your soul? Because they all believe, they all convinced that they, and we talk about who they are, are going to go to heaven. Okay. And they all.
But that is the fundamental question. Well, who's going to heaven? Is it you in your human form or something else?
Yeah. No, they talk about quantum physics and that the energy continues, because the one last week told me, you can't destroy energy, okay? You can only transform energy. So you get transformed into something else in another dimension to the physical dimension. Okay? But that's quite an enlightened viewpoint. But what happens after that? They've only got their books, their own holy books, to get some guidance on it.
Well, as that guru often says to people, like, why is heaven somewhere else? Why isn't it here? And if it is somewhere else, what are you waiting for?
Yeah.
So and why does this place, why can't it be here now? Why is that? And also, for some of them, well, hell is also somewhere else as well, somewhere that bad people go to. Well, what are they doing here at the moment? So
yeah.
But I suppose it's like the fish swimming in the ocean, isn't it? That maybe they're not aware of the water. I don't know.
Yeah. Not aware of being wet.
That's right. Exactly. Yeah. Well, the fish probably doesn't know what dry means, does it?
Yes. Like people in my class don't know what spiritual means. They don't know what source means. They're happy.
Well, I like source. I like source because it, because things that have a a corresponding example in nature, say like, oh, well, the source of the river. Yeah. The source of the river might be a spring, and it flows down rapidly and then slows down, goes into the wide parts of the river, and ultimately merges into the ocean. I mean, isn't that an incredible analogy for life?
Yeah,
So,
yeah, right.
But there is a source. There is a beginning, you know. So.
Yeah, I like that idea to use that analogy. I'm going to write it down.
But maybe for some people that only applies to rivers.
Yeah.
I was watching a news report there. Can't remember where I was watching it, but anyway, and it was about these protests that are going on in Sydney and Melbourne, and like the mandatory, what do they call it, the vaccination mandates or something.
Yeah, yeah.
And all these protesters, and they're attacking the news media. And this guy sticks a microphone in front of this woman's face and says, "So where's your evidence?" And she says, "On the internet."
Yeah.
I thought,
Sue was telling me that she read some news from the Netherlands to say that if you're going to travel to the Netherlands, Australian vaccinations are not valid.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yes. So it's quite profound.
So, okay. So what vaccination did they have up there?
It's all part and parcel of applying for a visa to go there. Okay, you can't say that you've been vaccinated in Australia. Okay, before you leave, you've got to have something like that. She was just telling me I didn't read it. I didn't read it myself. And let me just ask. Let me just see if she's. Sue, what was that article you read about? Vaccinations, Australian vaccinations in.
There's a number of countries. It was on the news feed on Bing. Number of countries will not accept the Australian vaccination. They don't believe it's the correct vaccination. It's not only Netherlands, it's Britain, Netherlands. There are about 8 countries who won't accept the Australian visa. And then
So what's the cure? What do they have to do?
What I just read the little tiny bit about it said, don't unpack your bags yet. When you apply for your Schengen visa, then you have to go through a whole rigmarole, but you will eventually be allowed to go in.
Okay.
But it's not an easy thing to get in with an Australian vaccination.
Okay, did you hear that one?
Yeah, I did, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, thanks, Sue.
Yeah, well, it's the new world, isn't it?
Yep. A new reality.
Well, I noticed that the Chief Health Officer in Queensland, here, came out today and said that in light of this new South African strain that's come in, is we might review our decision to open our borders on, that we'd committed to on the 17th of December. So it may well be that we'll never open our borders again. We'll just be a cave dwellers in the northern part of Australia.
Until something happens, and I wonder what that something is.
Well, that's a good question. What is that something? What's the circuit breaker for all of this?
You see, China is building islands. And if you've seen that, okay, and they all
quite a lot.
Yeah, a lot of them, and they're making them into military bases, saying that they're not. Okay, so they're definitely preparing for something. Okay.
Yeah.
On all spheres. I mean, the way they speeded up their space program as well, and putting satellites into space at different levels too, is it's amazing. I mean, it's very so they on all levels they seem to be. Expanding, ready for something.
Yeah, well, it's preparation for something, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing is, as you say, it's not just on the planet. It's they're off to Mars and
Yeah,
supposedly have advanced, construction on the moon and all sorts of stuff. So
yeah, and as we mentioned in one of our previous chats, they have these supersonic rockets.
Well, one of the technologies I was reading about through the week, actually, I was going to talk to you about it on Sunday, just reminded me. There was a scientist came out and was saying about how suitable the Martian environment will be for humans. And they've determined that what they need to do is, apparently Mars has a very weak magnetic field. Yeah. And that's what they've attributed to the loss of atmosphere and all sorts of stuff. And they said, so the reason that Earth has a strong magnetic field is, they say, because it has an iron core that rotates at a certain speed and all of that sort of stuff. And that magnetic field is largely responsible for the retention of the atmosphere and all of the things that come out of that in terms of, water and the biology and so on. So he was saying that that one of the priorities for the development of Mars is to reinstate a magnetic, or to instate a magnetic field. And he said, and it can't be done by natural means, meaning like, a magnetic core, because apparently the composition of Mars doesn't have that sort of composition. So they're working on a technology to enable it to put the magnetic fields onto a planet.
Okay, wow, that's interesting.
So my first impression from that was, as well that technology hasn't been developed on this planet.
Yeah.
Even to sort of postulate the need, even the ability to go and do that has to be from somewhere else.
For sure, absolutely, I agree. But there's this whole Mars exploration. I do a little bit of research on it, and there's like, with NASA and the China rovers and the little mini drones that they've got going around there too, and with such little information coming out, it appears that it's almost like superficial, and that.
Well, it is. I mean, that's my impression too. Like you look at a post from NASA, and I'll look at this beautiful picture. It's like a postcard from Mars. Like, what is it? Tells you nothing.
Yeah, and they give dribbles of information, and they've got these very sophisticated rovers out there. Okay, but also, what I'm also thinking is that, they're working in a three-dimensional universe, and Mars in a three-dimensional state. But the actual, I firmly believe that the civilization living on Mars is actually in a fourth or fifth dimension, and it's there, and it's now. Okay, yeah. So, and I'm sure a lot of people know about this. Not people like you and I, but people working on these black projects. They know about it. They've known about it for a long time, and yet we still get this trying to develop a rocket to get there and get back, and I just wish I could get somehow my claws into some more information that is more substantial about what I'm saying, because it's just, and I give classes on it, but I can't venture anything like that that's going to, I can't substantiate.
No, well, that's right. But even, like that article that I read, like left field, isn't it? Like it wasn't sort of saying, oh, that if this is what we want to do, then these sorts of things would be things we'd need to think about. It had gone well beyond that. It was oh, we're working on the technology to put in place, you know, magnetic fields around the planet. It's like, wow. Well, if you're working on that, then there must have been a whole bunch of whys beforehand that have been answered.
Yeah, I agree. And it's interesting, the concept of creating, because I mean, it's not difficult to create a magnetic field, okay? I mean, anything, magnets create a magnetic field, electricity can create a magnetic field. So, you know, maybe, wait a minute, maybe it's they're going to build a lot of pyramids.
Well, that could be. Who knows?
And then the pyramids are going to communicate with each other.
Yeah. Or maybe the pyramids will be how the magnetic field is instated. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
But there's also a lot of misinformation out there, which sort of, I don't know, my sense of it seems to be deliberately put out there. You know, like there was a whole lot of stuff there a little while back about, you know, solar panels don't work in cold environments. Well, how do they power the space station? You know, because the outside temperature there is like minus 400 and something degrees. You know, like what do you mean solar panels don't work in a cold environment?
Yeah, no, of course they do.
You know, it's you know,
I'm just thinking that in the line of your Mars magnetism, I wonder if, you know, that wasn't the reason why in a previous civilization where the pyramids were built, because they were built all over the world, okay? And whether they were actually creating a magnetic field for Earth. And we're still living off that, what that was created, and maybe it's moving now. Maybe it's getting weaker and weaker. Who knows?
Well, they do talk about the polar north and south magnetic fields flipping, don't they?
Yes, yeah. It's moving faster now than it has historically. For the sort of same sort of period. So yes, it is moving further away, and you know, they speculate about the flipping, but the mere fact that you know, true north and magnetic north are moving apart from each other.
Yeah. At a fairly great rate of knots, isn't it? You know. Really.
Yes. Yeah. So definitely, it could flip, and that would cause, you know, massive physical disturbances and on the entire planet. Okay, and the repositioning of a lot of continents, I guess, and water, which would be the movement of the platonic plates. So yeah, that.
So maybe it's those sort of factors that are driving, you know, the military development of China and some of the other things. You know, their preparations, you know, are for, you know, survival of their and protection of their lot or something in the time of chaos. Who knows? You know, so,
Yeah. But my interest still lies with Venus. Okay.
Yeah, well, that's the one that no one talks about, do they?
Absolutely. Nobody talks about it, and they sort of write it off in sort of glib articles of you know, they can't penetrate the shields, or the heat is too intense, or whatever. They come up with different excuses, but I'm convinced that Venus is where we're going to land up. I know, you know, Moya has told us that when Earth does swing away from its orbit, which it will do in some stage in the future, then Venus will replace Earth as the school ground, as the sort of low third-dimensional planet to live on. So, but he never said in which dimension. So, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's an important part of it, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I just wish there was more information available. And I mean, there are people talking and writing, but hell, they've been chopped off now compared to a year ago, Don. I could.
Oh, that's right. It's just silence,
just,
isn't it? Yeah.
They've just, I know, but they've been silenced. Okay, that's the point. I used to be able to find alternative information and whistleblowers and things like that. They're just not available anymore. They're just like gone off, and it makes research that's so boring now. It's with all these.
Well, that's right, and a lot of the social media stuff now, like there's even further development of that, this weekend even, where, that if your topic is deemed not suitable, not offensive, but not suitable, then that's it. It's gone.
It's gone, absolutely gone, and it's for me it's like I can say disappointing, and I can't get I enjoy that sort of information, but the fact that you actually can't access that information, I want a secret way to do it. Okay, I want somehow somebody has got to create an alternative to the current social media platforms.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, unless you have to go into the dark web or something, who knows? I don't know.
There has to be. I mean, Trump is talking about it, and but I want to stop that. I want to see it happen. Okay. I thought I would, just Telegram was one of the alternatives. I haven't really researched Telegram well enough to see if I can find some other information, because they don't seem to be chopping information. But I just haven't found what I'm looking for.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we should probably leave it there, should we?
Yeah.
One thing I was going to quickly ask you before we close down. So there's been some people following the videos on YouTube, hasn't there? Like posing questions or something. I had a quick look at it when you sent that note through, but I wasn't sure whether he was just trying to promote a particular crypto or something.
Yeah, it wasn't nothing serious. There are a handful of people that are, but no, nothing. Nobody has really commented truthfully. There's been some spam stuff. I thought this one that we saw now last week was, but I don't think so. I don't think I couldn't really make much head or tail of it anyway.
Yeah.
So I'll just leave it alone. I've got other things at the moment.
Yeah, for sure.
And also, we're doing it for a reason that it's going to be used by us sometime in the future. So, have you added anything more to the website as a matter of interest?
No, well, I haven't. It's not up at the moment, so I haven't done anything with it.
Okay, no, that's fine. No,
just thinking about what we might want to do, So
yeah, no. I just ask in case I'm missing out on something.
No, not missing anything. Yeah.
Okay, well, let's call it a day.
Okay, sounds good, and I'll speak to you through the week.
Yes, yeah.
Sounds good. Okay.
Thanks, Don.
Take care. Bye.
Cheers, man. Bye.